Welcome to the Digital Marketing Fluid podcast, where we talk about tips, tricks, and strategies that you can use in your digital marketing strategy. I'm your host, Paul Matthew, and I'm a video marketing specialist that helps my clients communicate their message through video. Today I'm speaking with Ryan and Brett, who are video producers.
Yeah, me too.
You guys are video producers for Lake Michigan Credit Union.
And other things. Let's not just single us in, but
I used to intern at Lake Michigan Credit Union,
True.
so
Disclosure.
that's how I know these two gentlemen. And back when I was attending Davenport University. So Ryan, you used to have a large influence on the web development from LMCU. Is that correct?
I still do. Yeah.
Okay, you still do?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit more about where your responsibilities are with that.
So for the credit union, I oversee the design elements. So anything from email marketing to how the website looks and feels, how the mobile app looks and feels, and so I manage the function and the design of those elements. And obviously, we work with a lot of internal partners that actually make it come to life with our information technology teams and stuff like that. But
And Brett, you are the senior video producer, so you guys work.
It's only because I'm old. That's why they put senior in it.
He's really not that old.
No.
So tell me about how you guys have to format video for social media. What's that process look like?
Yeah, so there's a lot of new things coming out with social media, and how video is being placed on social media is continuing to grow, and new ways to do that. Back in the day, you just kind of upload your video and there you go. But depending on how you want to track analytics, you have a lot of options. You can go to a YouTube model where you first post it on YouTube to get video shares that way, and then post it on social media. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we're formatting also and getting in touch with our social media specialist at the credit union to give them the actual video files.
I was really hoping that he was going to go with nationally gaining. It's an inside joke.
Yeah.
When he was promoting our film Finding Home, available on Amazon Prime.
That's right.
He's on the Free Beer and Hot Wings show, and he's talking. Or no, I'm sorry, we were doing Valentine.
That's right. We're doing music video.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about how they were nationally gaining, and they burned you.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
For quite a while.
Yeah. It was my first PR attempt. And,
Yeah.
for
like
what it was
12,
worth.
13 years ago.
Yeah. I learned a lot.
Oh, yeah.
What was the biggest learning lesson from that?
I think what it is when you're not well practiced, and I always would say from that point on, I've learned, even in presenting, whether it's on radio, podcast, video, it's always better to be prepped ahead of time, maybe even rehearse a few times.
So not like this.
Not so much.
Let me say, I think you were prepped, but you also were going on the Free Beer and Hot Wings show, so
It's
you had
true.
to sort of expect you'd
Yeah.
have a certain amount of.
I used to do security there, so
Yeah.
I saw those guys every day. And I remember we had a security guard that had done something inappropriate, and the Free Beer and Hot Wing guys talked about it on the radio.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the security company heard about what their employee had done. And
Was this you?
No, it was
Okay.
not me.
It was him, for the record.
That's
It
right.
was
We'll
not.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I promise. But so they do talk, and
Oh, yeah.
they will make you the butt of their jokes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And if you're going to be able to do any kind of thing like what I did, which was just a free plug,
Right.
yeah, you're in their crosshairs. So actually, I laugh and say, if they didn't make fun of it, then it probably wouldn't have
It would
been
have been a horrible
successful.
interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, part of
No
their...
one would want to watch that.
Like
if
our
it's
whole
just a
shtick
cookie
is coming
cutter.
on people's shows and making fun of them.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was really interesting. It was eye-opening. But
And coming back to the video portion of that, do you format the videos differently for each platform? Because every platform has its own native bias, where Instagram, you want more highly visual content, and LinkedIn, you want more professional content. Do you just cross-post all of the same content?
I think we adjust for certain elements, but I think for the most part, when our daily job comes down to it's like a grind, and a lot of times we don't have the time that we would wish we had to sort of go in and sort of swap some of that material.
But one thing that has changed and evolved for me that I've had to adjust to is this new way of utilizing with our smartphones. There's so much more screen real estate, and I've always been a very traditional video content maker where it was a standard 16 by 9 and you posted that. But you're seeing more and more from Instagram stories, Facebook, Snapchat. You're using this vertical model where now it changes the whole way you even film what you're going into. So if you're thinking this is mainly social and you're thinking it's Facebook stories or things like that, you might want to reconsider how you're shooting it to make sure your framing is keeping within those lines.
That's really important.
And Premiere Pro just came out with a new feature where they automatically change that framing for you, which is a really cool
You're
feature.
learning it here first on the Fluid radio show with Paul Chitten or Matthew. Sorry, I don't know your name.
Don't give out my real name.
Oh man!
Now it's a guess.
Yeah,
What he said, part of it.
That's great.
My last name actually means pig farm on a hill. Fun fact.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I can see why you changed it.
Yeah.
That's great. That's fun.
So, have you guys taken advantage of that feature yet with the...
No, actually, I'm just learning about it here
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah,
which is fantastic.
It's really... Because I used to have to do that manually.
When did this start? How recent is this?
This was their most recent update.
Okay.
So I don't even think I have it yet. I haven't played with the feature, but
I sort of accidentally forced you to have to upgrade when we
Yeah.
were working on
we were
Horse
working
Cam
on
3.
a movie together, and I hired you as a colorist for it. And then you used a more updated version of Premiere Pro that I
like
hadn't
a sane
upgraded to
human
yet.
being.
Nice.
So then I had to upgrade, and then now all of my other projects I had to update to the newer version. But so far, it's worked pretty good.
You know,
I've
the
been
great
happy with
thing,
it.
though, too, about Adobe, which I think if anyone out there knows this, you can have multiple versions of the app installed. So for me, for example, I use
couldn't
After
get that to
Effects.
work.
Oh, but it works. I've
Maybe
got
it's an Apple thing.
I've got maybe, but no, because I did it when I worked on your project.
okay.
You can have multiple versions of projects. So if you're in the middle of a project that, let's say you're in After Effects 2018 or whatever, and the last thing you want to do is upgrade that, you can install various versions of the software, which I think is really handy. Because I don't know how many of us have been in the situation where you're halfway through a project, an update comes out, and if you're like me, you just want to jump into an update because, I don't know, I'm crazy. And then your entire project is broken or it needs converting or whatever.
Right.
So
Right.
it's handy that you can have the multiple versions. It is a little tricky. I suggest Googling it, but you can find...
I think I
how to
did
do
have that at one point, and then
Yeah.
I got confused on like which
well, it's
version
obvious
I was opening.
why
it
you
on.
got confused.
So this is the part where you guys come on and make fun of
That's
me.
right.
That's
I
right.
told you.
That's right.
I
You just had to
pre-warned
warm
you.
up into
Yeah,
it.
I pre-warned you. I
That's
come
true.
on people's shows and make fun of them.
But hey, your hair looks great today.
Oh, thank you.
It really
Yes,
does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Better than your hair.
Yes. Haircut is on its way today. But one thing I was going to ask you with that new technology that you're talking about where it can identify it,
Yes.
is that taking into account now their ability to do face recognition? So are they finding where your main subject is and it's just following that?
Yeah, so the algorithm identifies what's most likely the center object that it needs to track, and then so say their example on their site was the snowboarder going in and out, and then
yeah.
they would track it and adjust that frame
Wow.
to follow as he's.
You know, in the 80s, we called that, what was it, pan and scan and pan or whatever?
Well,
Scan
it
and
took me
pan.
forever because I used to make a lot of stories, and I worked with a dancing company, and so they'd be dancing all over the frame,
Sure.
and then I had to crop it in vertically and then animate that keyframe each motion and movement.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool effect. I almost like it, especially with dance videos where it's that artificial like jolting motion. It worked well for dance, but in certain cases that's gonna look bad.
Could be the case, right? Right.
Well, you know, I'm actually another interesting feature. If we're talking about features, I'm actually in the process of considering moving to DaVinci Resolve. You know, there's a lot of feature sets in there that have been really, really cool, especially for coloring. But it's got this thing called the boring detector. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
So it'll analyze your video using algorithms similar to what Adobe's using for the pan and scan. But with DaVinci Resolve, it'll look at your video and tell you when to cut, because it knows based on how many thousands of videos it analyzed like viewers going to get bored if this thing doesn't cut. So if you press this button, it'll show you where on the timeline you should splice, which is really kind of cool.
That is a really interesting feature. I hadn't known about that.
Yeah.
I know there's some like plugins for Premiere and other software that basically finds where your camera motion gets jolty and like does all the tedious labor for you. So when you come into your edit, you've already got the best of the best for all of your takes. And all those jarring movements are just, they're on a separate layer or in a different timeline, so you still have them if you want to reference them, because sometimes those are useful.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. We just shot a video actually last week for the Christmas time season. For the credit union. You happened to help us out.
I did, yes.
Now, that is very cinematically framed. Now, this is where it gets into the challenging part, for like an Instagram or even Facebook for that point. I feel like the integrity of this spot and how it was framed from being the director of it, that I want to keep it, in that 16:9 wide ratio. But I know a lot of these online sites and what interests people, they'll see the full vertical video, and that gets their eye better. But framing-wise, I don't know how this would work. What are your thoughts on that?
So there's a couple ways to go about that. Some people add in like a little frame or a second piece before it starts that says rotate your phone, and then it goes into the video, so people just rotate it and watch it that way.
It's kind of sad that you have to tell people to rotate their phone. Let's just be honest.
I'm from an era where vertical video is very bad to do. You do not do vertical, but hey.
It's a changing landscape. You could cut it, like maybe send it off to somebody else who doesn't have that emotional connection with the cinematography that can reframe it. Because sometimes as a director, it is hard to be like, this is how it's supposed to look.
Well, it's hard when I've got one guy framed on the left.
You have to cut between them.
I know. And I don't want those cuts.
And that's what the challenge for me when I was talking about adapting to new trends with having vertical video. Again, I'm more on that traditional 16:9. And it's tough because in the piece, it almost does have that cinematic feel. And in certain cases, I think it ultimately comes up to you as the content creator on what you feel best represents what you shot. I mean, if you intentionally wanted it to be that way, but for me, I think the integrity of what we shot really deserves almost, again, those widescreen bars, cinematic bars, and it really has that pop of cinematic.
And I myself, I'm a cinematic shooter, and I like to have the cinema bars and stuff. And on certain platforms, it can retain that aspect ratio.
Right.
And then another trick I've seen with, if you have two people talking, you can actually just cut the frame in half and then put them one on top, one on bottom.
Why?
So you can see both reactions at the same time, depending what you're
the
going
things
for.
I'm learning on this fluid show, I don't like them.
When I was a young boy, we didn't have that technology.
You listen here. You and your vertical video.
And I think to real quick say, talking about those trends, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we joke, but we're really not that old. We've been, doing video for a while. But that is also what's exciting for those that are listening and looking at what digital marketing is evolving into. That's what's so crazy. It is vastly evolving, and there's so many different ways for people to be creative and come up with new ways to invent their own creative touch to their creative videos. So I think that is and I think it's going to continue to evolve. I think we're going to continue to see how that is. VR is a big thing that people talk about.
That's
3D
area,
videos.
But that's an area I almost know nothing about. Frankly, and I know that there's now cameras and things that are starting to work with that, and obviously After Effects and Premiere have put a lot of investment into those VR features. I have no idea how any of it works.
The Insta360 is a really cool tool because you can film and it films 360 as you're filming, and then in post you basically can maneuver the camera and look at what you want. So if you're skiing down a hill and you hold out in front of you, and then in post you can decide, I want to look down the hill, and then I want to rotate the camera to look at the guy skiing, and all those options. I think that's probably one of the coolest versions of VR that you can use in a more cinematic way. The camera quality is not there yet. I'm not happy with the quality.
Okay.
But once it gets up there and you can do a very nice looking linear, that gives you a lot of freedom when you're filming.
So I had an opportunity to experiment a little bit into like 360 cams when they were just starting to kind of come out at my previous work. We went on a trip to Kenya. And one of the villages we were going into, it was a pretty large stretch of just open, desolate space. And I was able to get on top of our little caravan Jeep or whatever with the 360, little camera that I had, and just kind of held it there underneath it because you didn't see below. And I was able to then see everywhere. I could, if I chose to look at it later on, like I want to see what we're looking at going forward, I could look backwards. And it was like you were there again, which is incredible. But like you said, the quality wasn't quite there. And I also just heard on the radio there's some assisted living or like a retirement home that are now pitching like their special features for being at their facility is VR experiences, where now when you can't travel anymore, they can put on VR and go on a vacation.
And I mind you that this is not a new technology. You go back to the early 90s, QuickTime VR existed, or 360. And because I remember looking at, I'm a nerd, the technical manual of the Enterprise D. For Next Generation.
That's Star Trek
that was
for anyone that's listening.
Which is coming back this January, Captain Picard.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't seen
Another
the promos
plug
for that.
Yes. You're welcome, CBS.
So VR is a very interesting space, and in terms of right now it's more commercial application and being able to walk into spaces and such. But from a storytelling perspective, it's a very interesting nuance to it to figure out, and this is something I've been thinking about, is how can I tell a story and when the audience could be looking the other way. Yeah. Be like, oh, this is what's happening. There's a murder, and they missed it. And you're like, oh, that was over there. I was looking the wrong way. And like, how do you utilize that to enhance the experience versus take away from the experience?
Right. Yeah, no, that's an interesting thought, because especially when you're thinking about production, if you got lights and any kind of crew, you got to hide them. And if you got 360,
that'll be the biggest challenge with VR hitting into full cinema. Now, where I can see it working is with these animated films.
Oh yeah, that's very true. That's actually a really good point.
You can just walk right into an animated film. That would be a really cool experience.
It would be a wild experience. So we're getting to the holodeck.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Back to Star Trek.
Yeah.
And even as 3D gets more and more realistic. But yeah, for actual practical sets, you're going to have a lot of in-set lighting that is...
Right. For sure.
I'm losing the term on it. What's practical lighting.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. It's interesting too, as we've been, we're kind of steering into more creative and like production, but even going back to like digital marketing, thinking about these new technologies, thinking about how you can utilize like 360. For us with working at Lake Michigan Credit Union, there's been times where we talk about what about the idea of we're always thinking about our members and potential new members. If they're thinking, I want to go into a branch, but I'm not really sure what to expect. Now you have an opportunity to use a 360 cam to then take a quick tour virtually for them to be able to see and experience what it's like there before even coming into a branch.
So that's how you can finally see what Florida looks like, right?
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, though, for a business application, that makes a lot of sense. You can have all this...
especially for real estate.
Especially for real estate.
Yeah. Real estate is probably the biggest industry to benefit from VR that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
So if you're in video, get into real estate is what you're saying.
If you're into 360 video, and this is probably a very underserved market right now. So if you own a 360 camera, which you can buy,
but every time I thought that anything was underserved, it wasn't. I've looked into it, and it's not.
And then it gets saturated. No.
Well, you want to get in before it's saturated. I still think the market is at a point where most real estate agents won't be thinking about 360 and how they can implement that. And if you can be the person to come in there and before the market's saturated and say, hey, I can make this 360 tour of your home and put it online for you, just give it a try, see how it works, see how people react to it.
I think you have a very good point there. Lake Michigan Credit Union is actually the #1 purchase lender in the state of Michigan. So
Right.
we give a lot of mortgages out. And so we're pretty closely tied with a lot of our loan officers who work with real estate agents. And I can tell you that just from an industry trend across the board, I mean, you're looking at Amazon and all the retail end of things is really sort of going online in this convenience era that we're in. And you can start to see with homes especially, I don't think, maybe 10 years ago this was a different story, but I think today you're starting to have people that are walking into the home that have been on that, listing for weeks looking at these pictures. So they're coming in way more educated than they ever have when they walk into the home. And I think it actually helps the entire housing market as well, because now there's less hunting, right?
Yeah.
Because they're doing that on their own in
And
the
you
comfort
can close
of
the
their home.
deal easier if they
Way
already
easier.
have sold themselves. on
Right.
it. And you're
So-
just there to collect the commissions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure.
And I mean, and that VR, I think it allows you to see in the home environment everything.
And
right?
do you think Lake Michigan Credit Union will roll out some sort of VR platform for their loan officers, or would that even benefit them in any way?
I don't think it would benefit us in
Yeah.
particular, but a lot of the partners that our loan officers work with,
For sure.
Okay.
it would. Yeah.
Because do you offer tools to the people your loan officers work with at all? Because that might be a tool that you could roll out.
Sometimes,
Sometimes.
but
Okay.
it's a tough area.
Yeah.
I mean, because they have their own business, we have our business, and obviously our primary goal is to make sure we can fund someone's home, and their goal is to sell homes. So
Right.
they're different but the same in a lot of different ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for
And,
sure.
and you said you looked into this market. Is it saturated right now?
I haven't looked into this market. I've looked into others that I thought weren't saturated, and I was always wrong.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
he comes up with these $1 million inventions all the time.
All the time.
And we're
No-
sitting there like, this is the best idea ever. He
And
had
then
this-
someone else invents it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
It's all about execution. You can be a genius, but if you don't execute on an idea, it has no value.
But
to
half
you.
his ideas aren't like everywhere yet, right?
Yeah.
Like, but they do exist, which is the hard thing, I think. In the
Yeah, it's true. The most recent big idea I had was a smart shower that you could literally, from an app, turn the water on, set your exact perfect personal temperature, and it temperature gauges everything. I'm like,
or
I've
even
never
with a digital panel in the shower.
In the
you
shower.
know?
and then ruin your phone. You're like, ah.
right?
No.
But we were like, and I'm jamming on these ideas with Ryan, and we're like, I've never seen anything like that. We both own houses, and we're constantly doing home, remodel stuff. I'm like, I don't see anything like that. And so finally, it gets to that point, and you're like, well, we should just search what the internet's doing, and then guess
Before we
what?
continue this,
all the major.
it's a great idea, really. Like,
Yeah.
especially if you have small children.
Did you find
can
it
set the
existed?
temperature.
It exists.
Unfortunately.
Now it's
I've
expensive.
actually been getting into smart technology. I just bought one of those Google Home things, so
Okay,
I
yeah.
can now just have things happen by my voice, which is really cool and really convenient in a lot of different use cases.
And it's the first time anyone listened to Paul.
I know, that's why I like it. It actually listens.
Yeah, soon it'll be talking to you, telling you what to do.
that's right.
You'll see.
But I think that all that smart technology is really cool. Now, I don't get the smart fridge. I don't understand what the use of a smart fridge is.
Well, don't you want to know when you're only, a quarter of the way with your milk? It can gauge that.
Does it actually
And
track
order-
that?
I can't confirm that.
I don't think if it can actually track inventory,
Guys, we just
that
got
would
a
be
$1 million
useful.
idea right here on the show.
Right here. And
Don't steal it.
yeah, that's right.
It probably exists.
yeah. Because I was just walking around
And it orders it on Amazon. And it's
Yeah,
delivered.
just instant.
Okay, we'll get that after the show.
They
Sorry.
have those little things that you
Yeah.
just a button that you press.
Yeah,
I don't
no
need
need
a
for a
button.
button.
No.
The fridge knows what to do.
I want a robot
But like
to
if you
know
had,
it.
if you for your common items like toilet paper, if
Yeah.
you run out, you press a button and everything's taken care
Why,
of. It
when
just
the
delivers.
smart home knows you're out of toilet paper, Paul, the toilet paper just comes.
That's
But
right.
how is the technology going to recognize that? Maybe it does. I don't have an expertise in here. But I find that I think it would be hard or a challenge to get technology to recognize that.
Yeah.
Hard. We'll figure it out.
When there's a will, there's
One
a
thing
way.
I will say though, kind of bringing us back to that digital marketing and in AI, and machine learning and all the rest, this is kind of this new wave, and everyone, there's different opinions out there on, is it a good thing, is it a bad thing? I don't really want people listening to me, or, it doesn't really matter to me. I don't care. For us as marketers, there's so much more data than really ever before because of the machine learning and just some of the information. Yes, we know it. Everything you click on, a lot of times it's being tracked if you're, ordering things on Amazon. But that's also like data-rich information for marketers to be able to look at these different trends that people are having at different age points, and helps us to be a little bit more focused in when we're thinking of content to promote to certain age demographics, especially for us, like Ryan said, trying to help people understand. You can reconsolidate.
I said it.
That's right. Reconsolidate a loan, or, get into a nice rate on a CD or something like that. We can help target better because of that data that we're getting. So it's good and bad,
And AI is an excellent way because there's so much data at this point that as a human, it's very difficult to even sift through and find the patterns. And as AI develops more and more, that data will become increasingly powerful.
It will. So, and again, people get freaked out or, creeped out if like, hey, I Googled like a sound bar for my TV that I want to buy. And then next thing I know, when I'm scanning through Facebook a day later, all of a sudden an ad's there for a sound bar.
Yeah.
And they're like, how did they know? Well, but at the end of the day, isn't that also convenient? Like you were looking because you're interested, and now this ad came up and it's like, oh, that's right. I was
Unless
still
you're
interested.
looking for somebody else, especially around this time of year, the Christmas season,
True.
you start looking for things you have no interest in, and then suddenly you're just getting fed all these ads. You're like, this wasn't even for me.
Right, exactly.
So, and then being able to understand that human behavior and differentiate between when they're looking for themselves and when they're looking for other people. So that's probably where AI is going to really start to help with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
We do have to start wrapping up here. And just last thing I want to talk about before we go is
That we're the best guests your show's ever had.
That's right.
Absolutely.
You've made it so easy to talk to.
I mean, you're no
Paul.
Howard Stern, but let me tell you.
So with the holiday season coming up, you've got Santa Squad launching.
That's right.
And tell me a little bit more about your campaign for that, and how do you get that in front of audiences?
That's really good. Yeah.
No, I insist.
No,
you're
right.
kind of my Santa guy.
Well, is that because I'm starting to look like Santa? And
Well,
Oh, when you put on the
I
white
have
beard.
seen Tim Allen's movie.
that's right. It can happen.
Did you
like
kill
that.
Santa Claus?
It's true.
Who?
So we coordinate with our community relations department, which does an excellent job finding ways to pay it forward through the month of December. So I guess all month long, what we do is basically give back and pay it forward to the communities we serve in. So our job from the video perspective is basically just to cover that. And I think this is my 6th year doing it. And every year it's been sort of a transformative process. It was very news-oriented feel when we first started it. But we're really trying to, this year, put in that more creative element.
Which, to be honest with you, Paul, is partly to do with your work while you were an intern with us. Because
I'm glad I made an
your
impact.
storytelling
Very
idea,
minimal.
little.
just
I
a
made my
little.
Made my little impact
Yeah.
and left.
But it was a great way to see that, we can tell these stories, still get the information, but continue to raise the bar in how we present it in a cinematic way,
Right.
or how. And there's always going to be those times where it makes sense to do more of just a news element kind of style. So you got to know what's right.
Yeah, I think it varies based on the content too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a really, I can't, of course, talk about any of the ideas. We try to keep it secret, but we've got a really cool month ahead for December where I think we're doing really great things. In years past, we've done really great things with Make-A-Wish, different foundations. So I think this year we're on par to do some really, really cool stuff for the communities.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's awesome. It's good to hear. And I know just from being on set with that Santa that it's going to look really cool. And I'm starring in it.
That's true. Paul
Starring
Matthew
is
Media. If anyone needs
big
help
term.
in Grand Rapids,
Co-starring with Santa Claus over here.
let me do a plug for Paul Matthew Media because this guy came in on a whim's notice. We did a trade deal, right? So I don't have a lot of resources for the video production, so I came to former intern Paul and said, I'll cut you a deal. We'll go on your show if you help us with this shoot. And he agreed to do that. But we're on set, and he offers to play the elf. So I was originally he was just going to run camera and all the fun stuff, and Brett and I were going to be
offer.
Santa
I
elf.
jokingly stated an idea.
And I latched onto it like a just zeroed in on
Let's
that.
be honest, when we look at you, perfect elf. Perfect elf.
Well, the good news is you found out that you barely fit the costume, and I certainly wouldn't have.
Yeah, it was a small costume even for me.
So if you'd like to see the host of this fine show in spandex, please stay tuned.
And there goes his viewership.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for coming on
You're
to
welcome.
the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
For the audience, just want to close out that this is Ryan and Brett. They are the video producers for Lake Michigan Credit Union, and be sure to look out for Santa Squad.
And I've got to plug our own podcast. It's coming up. It's called Wallet Wisdom from Lake Michigan Credit Union. Look out for it.
Yeah.
Ooh,
That's gonna
I'm
be
looking
good.
forward to hearing that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, you heard it here first in the Fluid Online Marketing Podcast. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Howdy ho, Tim.